Hey everyone, today I'm joined by Joseph Fioramonti. Joseph is the founder of Dark Square, the branding agency, and the creator of Constellations, a visual perception tool that replaces stakeholder guesswork with real audience data. He has spent over a decade doing large corporate rebrands for tech companies before building Constellations internally to solve his own approval problem. The tool now has 2 patents pending and is being opened to other agencies. Now, I wanted to have Joe on because most agency owners have been burned by the revision cycle and last minute stakeholder changes before. Hey, Joseph built a system that eliminates that dynamic, really just by collecting like visual data from hundreds of people before any creative direction is locked in. And the results are really remarkable. In this episode, we discuss why including more stakeholders upfront eliminates revision cycles, how visual perception data replaces guesswork in brand approval, building a SaaS product inside your agency for 2 revenue streams, and more. No one was asking for another community, but I've made one anyway. So what's different? The dynamic agency community is designed around access rather than content. Access to peers who've done it before. Access to experts who've designed solutions. Access to resources that have been battle tested. And right now, the price for founding members is only $97 a year. Join today so your agency has immediate access to everything you need to grow. You can join at dynamicagency.community. And now, Joseph Fioramonti. It's easier than ever to start an agency, but it's only getting harder to stand out and keep it alive. Join me as we explore the strategies agencies are using today to secure a better tomorrow. This is Agency Forward. What made you build a perception tool inside your own agency?
Yeah, so we were doing pretty large corporate rebrands for a lot of tech companies, some of them very established and large, some of them more startup side, mostly in San Francisco. And this was back in like 2010, 2015. And we just had mood boards as an essential part of our process. It was so important for us to get in front of the leadership and use a mood board so that when they told us we wanted to look red or green or whatever, the adjective was, that they were pointing to something and telling us that's what I like or that's what I don't like. There's such a range of colors and styles and textures and things that, the language is clumsy. If they say modern or contemporary or whatever, it's really hard to understand what that means until you point at it and you look at it. And working with a lot of big data companies, it just seemed obvious to us, like this is a data point, but why don't we scale that? So shocking to me, we have 2 patents pending on the thing now, but we wanted to scale that, and we wanted to be able to take essentially mood boards and put it in front of thousands of people, ask them to show us what they liked and what they didn't like in the context of a brand or a value or a theme, whatever it may be, and get that data back to see, okay, where do thousands of people align rather than 1 or 2, who are stakeholders at a company who might have good taste, might not, might have an idea of what their audience is going to respond to, might not. Now, instead of asking them, what do you think? We're able to come back and say, this is what your audience thinks. This is how they respond. Mm-hmm. And that has completely changed the entire conversation.
Now, with that, how difficult is it to ensure you're getting what you want from the audience, right? Like just putting some designs in front and saying like, hey, which one do you prefer? Mm-hmm. It's probably only painting like half the picture. Mm-hmm. How do you also ensure you're getting like I don't know the right word, like the quantifiable side of it, or qualifiable? Maybe depending on, it's like, you like this one. Why?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The why almost doesn't matter as much in my opinion. It's a lot of people have a hard time articulating why. And that's the thing with creative work. As soon as you kind of are able to articulate the why, it loses some of the magic in my opinion. And so we've used this tool for years now. And my thesis is that it gives real authentic kind of gut reactions where if you ask a text-based survey, the literature is pretty clear on this. People go into PR mode and they're trying to look smart or at least not dumb, right? They want to sound like they know what they're talking about, and they're going to give you a lot of feedback that isn't really helpful. So, one is the audience. Is it the right audience? We do a lot of B2B stuff. And so we find that the employees at a company that we're doing a rebrand for are a good pool. They're familiar with the brand. They spend 40 hours a week. Some of them are passionate about it. It's a good pool of people. And we can usually get hundreds, if not thousands of people in that scenario. And that's statistically significant. But even with some of our social media kind of marketing efforts, we'll get 30 people to engage. And there's some clear signal there. Obviously for client work, we want to get that number higher if possible, but it's really fascinating to see like the patterns come back even with a small number of people. So we usually start with all the traditional research. We want to know all about the company. We want to learn everything we can about the market. We want to learn everything we can about the customers and their lifestyle and their preferences on things. And we take that, we make the visual boards, we call them audience perception maps, and then we validate. And so it doesn't really replace anything that an agency is already doing, except for that validation layer. A lot of companies will hire research firms. They'll do focus groups. They'll have their own surveys, but in my opinion, those all fall short because they're not visual. This is a way to test the visuals in a really frictionless way. It takes somebody 30, 60 seconds to go through this, and you're just asking for kind of a gut check. Do you like it in the context of whatever this question is, or do you not? And we get to see both, and that contrast is what's really powerful.
Right. I'm thinking back to the agency that I used to run, and we would do websites. One of the initial things we would do when onboarding was like, we'd tell the client, hey, find 5 websites that you like, find 5 that you don't like, and tell us why. And now I'm even wondering how many of those maybe they found a site they liked, but because they couldn't put a word to it, or they were worried it wouldn't sound smart, right? And they just said, all right, well, let's just do this one instead. And so they kind of gravitated towards like the main, I guess, rather than, no, this is what I actually like, and I want to see if my audience will like it too.
Right.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought process. Okay, so as you go into the alignment phase with any project, right there, you start getting the too many cooks in the kitchen problem, where everybody has an opinion. Now everybody's throwing their 2 cents in. How does like Constellations help solve for that?
Yeah, we've completely shifted our perspective on this. We can't have enough cooks in the kitchen, so to speak, and they're not cooks, but they're contributors, right? We kind of have a rule at Dark Square, my agency that created Constellations. We insist that if somebody has veto power on a project, they need to be involved from the beginning. And so we're looking for as many stakeholders as we can get. The project that made us decide to build this out in a way that other people could use it, because we'd been using it for a long time. We had 22 stakeholders on that project, and we asked them a lot of questions. Part of our due diligence is we call 21 questions. They're all business questions, but we are able to surface everything that everybody agrees on and all the things that they don't. And so what we're trying to get ahead of is that, we'll talk to 2 or 3 stakeholders, and if we were trying to limit the number of people who are involved, you do all this work based on 2 or 3 people's opinion, and then you put it in front of a group of 20 or 50 or 100 people, and suddenly you have 100 different opinions on what it should be after you already did all this work. And so we want to hear from them up front. And so we do that exercise. We build our boards, our visual boards, based on those conversations, and then we validate. We put it in front of not only those stakeholders, but now the entire company. Might be large social media audiences or mailing lists or whatever it is. And so we come back to them and we do a discovery reveal, and we show them, okay, this is everything you told us in writing. This is where you align. These are your disagreements. You need to sort that out. Here's the visuals that we came up with or found based on that conversation. And here's what people are really responding to positively. Here's what they are responding to negatively. Let's look at it side by side. And then we move forward. And we have found that not only does it eliminate all the objections and reworks and, discordant feedback from various people, the morale around a rebrand, it just is night and day. And that was a surprise to me. I didn't really expect that. I wasn't really thinking about that when we first used it. But a lot of times when you do a rebrand, there's some, there's reorg happening, there's people coming or going, there's an acquisition, and people get nervous. With this, people get excited. They feel like they've been heard. They feel like they are a part of it. And we've just found when we do rebrands this way, the morale at those companies is really, really high, and people are really excited about it, rather than, a few people might be excited about it, but like quietly, around the water cooler, people are kind of like, wasn't that great? People tend to be really excited about it.
Yeah, well, I imagine people knowing that their voice was heard within the process, like, gives them some sort of ownership over that change. And when you have so many people who can feel that, and now starts to spread a lot faster.
Yeah, and I think the way we roll out is important too. We present it. Sometimes we'll do it at an all hands meeting, or we'll make a video if that's not an option, and we kind of show how we got there, and people get to see, yeah, this is, we have these very visual heat maps of visuals that everybody weighed in on, and to look at that as a group and see, yeah, we actually see a lot of the same things in common. I think is pretty powerful.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, seeing the process, I think, is huge. One of the things that and sorry for any listeners who do this, but like, I've got a buddy who runs there's marketing for a very high end tech company, and they had hired a branding team essentially to come in for like a very specific project. The team came in, gave them a PD after $30,000+ and everything, gave them a slide deck, and the deck was crafted in the way to get you to want their solution, right? Like, they told the story around why they chose it, not the process for how they got there. And I think it's a very like I don't know, for a lot of people it might sound like the same thing, but the ability to say, like, look at all of these, like, we made this choice, and then these people said yes, we like it, and then we weighed in on opinions, and then we did this, versus, well, we thought it would be good to have this, and so we just kept snowballing this until we got to this asset. And it's like that, like, I don't know that you're ever going to get the same effect as the one where you're having all of these people weigh in. And so really, like, you want to bring back marketing by committee with this system.
Yeah. And that's the shocker headline, like, more cooks in the kitchen, right? It's not that they're in control. It's not that you've lost creative freedom. I've talked to agency owners who worry about that, or that data is driving their creativity. It's the validation layer and the inclusion that you now have a tool where you can hear from thousands of people in an organized fashion that helps you find what's going to work. You're still doing the creative. You're still sourcing those based on your expertise, on your research and understanding of the marketing problem or the branding problem, whatever it is you're trying to solve. But now you have a way to collect feedback from thousands of people in a way that's meaningful, lets them be heard without taking over the project.
Right. See, where's the hang up now, like, for agencies as they're going through this? Like, not going through, like, using something like Constellations, but like going through the actual process of getting approval, getting projects launched, and everything. Like, what's that one bottleneck that they need to be focused on eliminating?
I think what it is this unspoken fact or truth that, like, you're kind of guessing, right? You might be a creative who has a great track record and you really know a particular space, but you're taking that leap of faith, right? And I think there's also this dynamic where you're fighting to get approval, and then it goes live, and those are two different things, right? You've got a very small select audience of stakeholders who are really invested in the country and might have problems seeing beyond their day to day, and so there's this tension between stakeholders, creatives, and then audience, right? So you really have three parties, and they're not talking to each other in a meaningful way. And so, I think a lot of the challenges of last minute cold feet, change everything, that comes from lots of stakeholder feedback that doesn't really line up with each other, or a cavalier CEO who thinks they know better than the creatives that they hired, or whatever it may be. It all comes from this kind of underlying thing that, if we're honest, we're kind of guessing to a certain degree. Whereas with Constellations, what we find is we have very good data. it's visible. It's really easy to understand when you're looking at it and reading about it and hearing about it. I think those three ways of kind of experiencing that data is important, and it helps stakeholders understand that you really know what you're doing, that you really tested your ideas and have real audience data from their audience. It's not somebody else's audience, it's theirs. And the odds are that this is going to work. And so you don't have that hesitation, that doubt. You have really a solid case to move forward that I think gets stakeholders behind you. And we've seen it with our clients. We like the results after a rebrand that we do, it has been phenomenal. And so we now have a track record to say, yeah, you can see this all. And also we've done this enough times to know that it works, that it's not just another, a new trick to quote unquote validate it. It really does work. The connection seems obvious to me when you look at it, but now we have the track record as well.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, with like even with the data to back everything up, do you still get clients who push back on the audience's suggestions?
No, because they're really not audience suggestions, right? Like we're putting these visual arrays in front of people, essentially mood boards, 3 or 4 of them, and what we get back is a very it scores all of the swatches in those boards based on what people indicate that they like and don't like. And so on the left, you have an array of things that people like next to an array of things that people don't like. And any given swatch really doesn't tell you much, but the gestalt, the combination of both, and lots of images in both, you see very clear patterns. We have a great set of AI models that do pattern recognition and do a good job of articulating what the differences between those two categories are. And so, no, we really don't get pushback anymore because it's so hard to argue with because it's right. I haven't really had any customer, like it's just been so remarkably easy to get approval since we started doing it this way. It seems almost too easy.
Right. And so go into those AI models. First, it's probably great use of AI to actually speed up a process, right? Something that it's like it's not actually influencing the creative decision, but it's just identifying those patterns so that you can move faster through this. What was it like having to train those in order to like see the result?
Yeah, we're fortunate. We have a really, really smart AI person on our team, and his name is Jake. He's fantastic, and he has helped us engineer different prompts for different use cases. Like we use it for graphic design stuff, for branding, and so that particular model, it's probably 5 to 8 pages long, and it just has all this expertise in design and semiotics and communication theory and these things that we lean on theoretically in our practice. But we've worked with a few customers now to create ones for policy and team building and these different things. So, working with our customers at Constellations to understand their needs and their expertise, their reading lists to make these very, very long engineered prompts, to take that data and make sense of it in the context of how they're using it has been really powerful. And like you said, it doesn't replace the person. It's not making design decisions. It's just strictly doing pattern recognition within a particular discipline or context. And it's great for me. Like we did one around the 4th of July last year, just for fun. It was like, what does American look like to you? And I had my graphic design glasses on, and I like all the fonts are the same. It's all red, white, and blue. Like I couldn't make heads or tail. Like to me, it was a failed test. And I was like, this is the first failed test we have. I really don't see a difference. And the AI was really good at finding a thematic that all of the things in the positive board for that one really truly were like shared national effort things. They were historical figures and events and these NASA and US stamps and things like that. And then all of the things that were negative were just sales garbage. They were all just marketing material. And I was just stuck in my own head as a designer. I couldn't see the theme. And so the AI was really helpful in kind of pointing that out to me. And once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating because it gives you, it's not just hey, look at the colors that we're using here, the designs, the shapes, like everything. It's like, if you can have that theme to go along with it, it's like, that can dictate so much of
Yeah.
of what you're doing. And so when you look at even like any brand's positioning, right? If you can tie that back to a theme, now everything can follow suit a lot easier. Like, oh, that's yeah.
Yeah, I think that's worth talking about too. Is like it started off as a creative mood boarding kind of idea and tool, but the really powerful things have been the themes that we find. And if you have a background in, my background is in fine art and philosophy of art and semiotics and these things,
Mhm.
like very esoteric and theoretical, but like what do images mean and why has always been an interest to me since early college days and even before. And this tool, it finds those patterns and finds meaning in the patterns and value in the patterns. And so when we go back and we talk to a company about their brand, we're not picking colors per se. I mean, we're doing that, but we're really helping them understand what's important to them and
Mhm.
why, and how to express that visually and through language. And it's just been invaluable as a tool for doing that.
Yeah. And this just got me thinking of a podcast I was listening to recently. They were talking about a study where they were showing like different pictures to people with like, I don't know, it could be like a cityscape, it could be like different things.
Hmm.
And then they would ask them what shapes they were seeing. And depending on their cultural like alignment, they would see either squares, rectangles, or they're seeing circles. Anyone who was kind of more industrialized was seeing more of the hard edges versus people who lived in more natural environments were seeing a lot of circles and stuff. And so it's interesting to be able to like even pull that out right from like, okay, well, our audience is generally these people. And so like they see all of these and those patterns are able to be pulled out. Like it's, yeah, stuff's, I don't know. I always get impressed with this stuff. So hopefully the listeners are doing the same thing. I guess with this though, are you also seeing like a reduction in revision cycles for all of the assets coming from this? Um,
100%. Yeah. There's no like, oh, we had an idea at the last minute, like famous last words. I had an idea.
mm,
Um, it becomes an accountability tool. We have the reports that are generated after we've done the study, after we've gotten hundreds, if not thousands of people to participate. And so if somebody has an idea or they want to pull somebody in who hasn't been involved, they have to go back and start there. And they have to have a very good reason to redo that whole process over again. And maybe even, rescope if they want to redo it again. But nobody
mm,
wants to do that, right? They read it and it's like, well, nothing to argue about anymore. And it just
right.
takes it out of the realm of like, I have an opinion, I have an idea, to we've done the homework. We know this is going to work. If we're going to change, there better be a very good reason. And we just haven't come across it yet. There isn't one.
Yeah, it's definitely a sturdier foundation for
Hmm.
everything coming from design. Um, so I want to shift gears a bit to um, just this thought. Most agencies, and I've had this thought for a while because I've talked to a lot of agency owners, but most agency owners at some point in their life are like, man, I should just own a tech company or like a product company because the pains of doing everything in the service environment, right, just catch up to them. Um, they probably don't realize the grass is not always greener, just different problems. But there's something powerful about an agency being able to also create a tool. And so now you're playing in kind of two different arenas. But when that tool supplements your business, like you were going to use this anyways because it's the best way to use this, but now it's available for everyone else. I think there's something incredibly powerful with that. And you've built that here. My previous agency had built a similar tool for building
Yeah.
uh, building websites fast on HubSpot, and like it just works. But I guess what are you finding as some of the growing pains from having this as a tool that you use versus now being like, hey, let me actually open this up to the market?
Yeah. Well, I mean, upfront cost, we've bootstrapped the whole thing. My team has done the development, but there's been a lot of expense. So we've spent a lot of money on building it out, and by bootstrapping it, it took a little longer than I was hoping. And
Mhm.
it's certainly scary with AI kind of killing
Right, looming in
applications
the
as a
background.
as a business, right?
Mhm.
I think this has actually got a moat around it that it'll do pretty well. There is an AI component with interpretation, but getting the data itself, you can't really do that with AI, as far as I can tell, at least not yet. So
Mhm.
I think it was still the right decision, and I'm excited about it. Some of the benefits have been, one, it makes my agency just work so much better. I mean, the tool has just changed and eliminated so many of the problems and pain points and the things I hear about all the time. Like I was like, oh yeah, I remember
Mm-hmm.
those things. So that's been really good. And also, as we start to work with other agencies and other individuals who are using it in really creative ways, it becomes a feeder for Dark Square. And so we're actually looking for partner level people to work with us and use Constellations where it's kind of a feeder both ways. As they use it with their customers, they might have a big corporate client that's doing retail stuff. They can make an intro and we can help their client after a rebrand with a retail component or something like that. And vice versa, as people start to learn about the tool, we're looking for people who can become experts in using it that we can refer people coming through Constellations to and say, oh, this is our person for, the golf industry or this or that. And they know how to use the tool really, really well. And we can vouch for, their skill set in setting up tests properly and understanding the results properly and get you that result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that all sounds great, but I want to hone in on that data moat that
Mm-hmm.
you have, because it just got me thinking. So maybe this is a stupid concept out loud, but the as people are looking to build data pockets with AI, right? They're trying to use AI to find this data, but
Yeah.
you're doing it in a way that's very human centric, where it requires people actually taking their perspectives, because AI can't replicate that yet
Right.
for so many people. And then you collect that as your data source that AI has access to. The company that did was it Pokemon Go?
Mm-hmm.
For, had a huge sensation going everywhere. People I guess they've found a way to use all of the images that were captured during this to see how what do streets actually look like, or all of these different locations actually look like, and that's all data they collected. And so now it's still anonymized and everything, but they
Right.
can sell that to different companies as a data source to train AI on hey, this is what this park looks like at different times and
Yep.
all this, and they have the biggest data set because of that. And so I think you're building something very similar just on a design front, and and I don't know, it sounds amazing. I think it is a very strong moat, I guess, is the whole point of that entire story.
Excuse me. Yeah. We're definitely interested in that data. I mean, we want to get this popular and have a lot of people use it. And
Mhm.
we're calling it aesthetic data. I don't know what else to call it. It's more emotional, what does it look like and feel like to you when you watch a movie or you see a painting or something like that? That's what we're trying to measure. And I don't think anybody's ever tried to measure it before based on our patent research. There's some clumsy
Right.
efforts here and there, but this is very, very different. And so I think we can get that data. The thing about that data is it's a constantly moving target. There are trends over a year and over decades for a reason, right? As it gets saturated, people kind of get bored of it and then they move on to something else. And then there's nostalgia that comes back in later. And there's a lot of theory about this, but now I think we have a really good tool for measuring it in some meaningful way. So on the one hand, I do think as time goes on and we acquire more and more of that kind of data, it will be helpful for training AIs. However, because humans are what they are, it will be a constantly moving target. And AI in its nature, it's like all of the humans, right? I've seen a lot of interesting synthetic audience projects and they're kind of neat. I'm a little skeptical about how successful they actually are. I know they will get better as time moves forward, and a tool like this, collecting the data that it does, will make them better. But the cool thing about Constellations is, you're asking your audience how they feel about something. It's not everybody. It's not a best guess at what your audience is. It's your audience. And so you're getting real data about them in the moment, not, 10, 5, 1 year ago, whatever it is. It's right now and you can action on it.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's what's because even those complete AI sources, they can't get those other details, the emotional side
Mhm.
of what design will do for you, or
Yep.
looking at something, right? And they don't. Yeah, it's so nuanced that I don't know that it's going to be possible for the time being, unless they have a data
Yeah.
source like yours to be able to pull from
Right.
and use.
And
And so,
to be fair, humans can't either, right? I mean, we're taking our best guess. We're using AI to make another layer of information, better guess.
mhm.
I really do think this is a pretty unique solution, a very unique solution to getting that kind of data to do what you're trying to do more effectively.
Mhm. Yeah. So awesome. I guess let's hit the two final questions here. The first one being, what book do you recommend every agency owner should read?
Yeah, agency owner. I'm rereading Profit First. I ran my business that way for a long time. Mentioned I've spent a lot of money getting this new project off the ground, and had to go back to basics a little bit. But yeah, if you're starting out, or if you're if you haven't read Profit First, read Profit First. It's I think financially speaking, a pivotal or foundational book for running an agency. I think it's a really important one.
Yeah, it's Mike Michalowicz, right? He's got Clockwork. I think it was one I really enjoyed from him too. Like, I actually
good titles. Yep.
I organized my my Google or Gmail to have different inboxes depending on whether like it fit in different categories of, and like it was super helpful for getting.
And that's his approach with finances, a bunch of different accounts for different uses, so that you're not dipping, you're not robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. Right. You're keeping everything separate, and you can see it at a glance. And it's just kind of how I work, high level. Yeah. Just get an idea.
Last question is, where can people find you?
Yeah, constellations.app or darksquare.com. Those are the two sites. And then LinkedIn. LinkedIn's always a good place to connect.
Awesome. Joe, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me.
That's the show, everyone. You can leave a rating and review, or you can do something that benefits you. Click the link in the show notes to subscribe to Agency Forward on Substack. You'll get weekly content, resources, and links from around the internet to help you drive your agency forward.